The other interesting aspect, and it's fascinating to me that you have companies that have 15, 20, 30 people, and they make that decision after many, many years of product development to flip that commercial switch. And many of them don't realize what they're getting into. Because it's not just about getting the CE mark, it's about having the right product there at the right time. Because at the end of the day, you have to have finished goods in place. And this is a very complex process for any startup company. It's amplified in Europe when you have to think about the complexity. So you start having to evaluate questions such as the prototype manufacturers that made the first 75 units that we did for our CE mark trial are great, but if we had to have an FDA inspection of them, we would be very nervous, and they clearly can't make 500 a month. So we're going to have to make a transition from the folks who got us through the prototyping phase to people who do this on a regular basis. We're going to have to change our packaging probably. We're going to have to look at new packaging, new designs. We're going to have to look at new labeling, IFUs. Several of those companies that I mentioned, they didn't even implant the product in Europe before they got approval. So what are the requirements in terms of language IFUs? Sterilization, are we going to manage that? Is our contract manufacturers going to manage that? What about logistics? How do we get product into Europe? How do we get it to 27 different countries? How do we deal with traceability? What about warehousing? And then you've got authorized reps. So if you do not have a physical office in Europe, you have to assign somebody who's an authorized rep. That means that for every box that you sell in Europe, for every product you sell, you have to turn over that box, and there has to be an EU address and an EU phone number, so that if somebody has a product complaint or they have a question, that they're not going to be calling here, they're going to be calling somebody there. That's a requirement. So typically you assign that. You have to also look at customer service. Who's going to take the orders? What happens when the order comes in and they only speak Italian? How are we going to take that order? How do we deal with returns? How do we deal with invoicing, which then gets into the banks, the VATs, the APDF? So you can see that there's